There are so many ways you can use shredded chicken breasts in recipes throughout the week, whether it's for lunch or for dinner or even for breakfast and snacks. But if you want to see my favorite, stay tuned. It's coming up next. Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm really glad you're here. Today I'm showing you one of my very favorite recipes, and it's going to start out with chicken breast, and I'm telling you guys, this is like the miracle food. It's the easiest thing to prepare. It's the easiest thing to adapt for whether you're making it for one or two people like I'm doing for Phil and I, or whether you're feeding an army. This is like so simple to modify. I'm throwing a chicken breast in a crock pot, and I'm just going to use a half a can of chicken broth because I don't like water in there, but it needs some moisture to cook, otherwise it's going to be really dried out. I'm using a half a can of chicken broth because it's just one chicken breast. If you have three or four, throw in the whole can of chicken broth. I'm also going to add some garlic salt because in this household you cannot have too much garlic salt. And I'm also going to throw in some Lowry seasoning salt. Chicken breast is one of those things that you can season with anything you like, whether it's, the canned onion soup mix or ranch dressing mix, or I've even used Italian salad dressing. So you can do this totally to taste what you prefer. Once this chicken is cooked, and I left it in the crock pot probably for, I would say, a good 3 hours, and I put it on high because I needed the crock pot later in the day, which is why I did that. Otherwise, I would have left it on low and this thing would have just fallen apart as soon as I tried to pick it up. But I left it on high for 3 hours, and I'm taking this chicken out and I'm just pulling it apart with two forks. And you can see it's not difficult at all. The biggest issue I had in shredding this particular chicken breast was my plate was too small. I should have used something larger and something that didn't have the ridges on the edges, but I got the job done, and that's really all that matters. So I'm just pulling it apart with two forks here, and then I'll cut it into smaller pieces with a knife, with a sharp knife. And then I'm going to add some of the drippings from the pan because I don't want it to get dry. I want it to stay moist. I don't want to add a lot to it at this point because I'm going to use it for several recipes throughout the week. You can add some barbecue sauce to this and use this for pulled pork sandwiches. You can throw this in with some like mayo and relish and make a chicken salad sandwich. You can add this to really any hot pasta dish. You can, geez, what else can you do with it? Chicken tacos. You can add this on top of potatoes. Really, it's so versatile. You can do anything with it. But I have something special in mind, so what I'm going to do is just chop this into smaller pieces and add that broth to it so it stays nice and moist. I'm going to make my very favorite chicken dinner ever, and that is chicken and cheese quesadillas. You're going to need chicken and cheese, tortilla shells, and then whatever else you like on them. I'm using for this particular recipe salsa verde salsa and sour cream as well. Now, I don't fry my tortillas. I don't like them when they have that oil or grease taste to them. So I just do them in the oven. For me, that's easier. So I'm going to preheat the oven at 350 degrees, And I'm using a 9-inch cake pan for this particular recipe because I'm only making a single quesadilla for Phil and I to share. If you're going to make more than 1 or 2 quesadillas at a time, I recommend using a cookie sheet because it's a lot faster. And because I'm making this for us to share, I'm not going to fold it over in half like you would traditionally do. I'm going to use a tortilla shell on the top and a tortilla shell on the bottom and cut it like a pizza. And it's so much easier that way. So I'm adding the salsa verde to the bottom because I want that tortilla shell to be nice and moist on the inside, even while it crisps up on the outside in the oven. And then I'm adding my onions here. And again, this is something that you totally do to suit your own taste. I spread them out so they're evenly distributed, but how many you use is entirely up to you. I like a lot of onions, and Phil just pretty much tolerates whatever I make. So that works out well. I like a sharp cheddar cheese. Again, this is a recipe you can totally adapt, so use whatever you like. Taco cheeses would work. Pepper jack would be fantastic in here. Anything that's got some heat, anything that's got good flavor and that melts well is going to be good. Now I'm stirring that chicken up a little bit before I put it onto the tortilla because I want to make sure that none of that chicken is dry. There's nothing worse than dry chicken, is there? Ugh. I don't want that at all. So I just stirred it up to make sure that there were juices evenly distributed throughout that meat before I put it on the tortilla shell. Then I'm going to cover this with cheese. And again, I'm going to use a lot of cheese. I'm going to stay away from the edges a little bit with the cheese. And the reason I do that is because when I'm done cooking this tortilla or this quesadilla at this point, I don't want the cheese oozing out all over the back and making a huge mess. And I also don't want it to be super difficult to eat. I want it to be nice and cheesy, don't get me wrong, but I don't want it oozing out the back when I'm trying to eat. So I'm keeping it more toward the center of the tortilla. And then I'm just going to top this with another tortilla that's similar shaped. And that may sound like a weird thing. You're thinking tortillas are round. Yeah, but they're all different sizes and they're kind of oblongish sometimes. So make sure you find 2 that fit because otherwise you end up with something that looks really weird. And then I'm just going to throw this in the oven for about 10 minutes. Basically, I want the tortilla to crisp up and I want the cheese to get all nice and melty and gooey on the inside. And our timer's gone off and this quesadilla is done. So I'm going to pull this out of the oven and take a look and see what we've got here. A super simple recipe. Again, you can cook this on a cookie sheet if you're making several, or if you're just making a couple, you could just use more than 1 9-inch cake pan if that's what you choose to do. I'm just going to use a spatula to slide underneath of there. There's nothing in that cake pan. There's no grease or oil or anything. I didn't spray it. I just went ahead and dropped the tortilla straight in there out of the cupboard and it worked just perfectly. Now I'm going to start with the pizza cutter in the center of the tortilla, and that's so I don't smush everything out and slide one tortilla across the top of the other. It just makes it a little bit easier. Seriously, cutting this with the pizza cutter is the easiest way to get everything done. And I'm just going to cut it into 4s. I could cut it into more pieces, but it's just Phil and I, and we're not overly particular. But I'll pull that apart and you can see that nice and gooey cheese in there. Now I'm just going to put some sour cream on here, but you could use any kind of topping you like, any kind of salsa, sour cream. It's really up to you guys, however you like it, whatever tastes good to you. And just that quickly and that easily, dinner is served. Thanks for stopping by, guys. I hope you enjoyed. We'll talk soon.